Is college the biggest financial illusion of the modern era? For decades, college has been positioned as the default path to success. The formula has been repeated so often, to some people, even today, it feels like common sense. Graduate high school, go to college, earn a degree, get a stable job, build a life. Simple, right? Sorry, boomer, that world does not exist anymore. That simple story is now obsolete. Rising tuition, record student debt, a shifting job market, and the rapid rise of alternative education paths have all contributed to a growing question. Is college still the best investment for most people, or has it become an expensive assumption rather than a smart decision? At the center of this debate is student loan debt. In the United States, it now exceeds $1 trillion. Unlike many other forms of debt, student loans are unusually persistent. They follow borrowers for years, sometimes decades, and can delay major life milestones such as buying a home, starting a family, or building financial stability. This raises a basic but uncomfortable question. If college is an investment in the future, why does it so often begin with long-term financial strain? Could it be that higher education has little to do with developing a professional workforce and more to do with developing indentured slaves? Well, yes. It's a business, or more appropriately, it's a Ponzi scheme. Just like the monetary system, it's a scam. Supporters of higher education point out that, on average, college graduates earn more over their lifetime and experience lower unemployment rates. Many careers, medicine, engineering, law, education, and others, require formal degrees and licensing. From this perspective, college remains a powerful and sometimes essential institution. However, if we are after the truth, this has more to do with the government bureaucracies that keep it essential. If it wasn't for federal and state funding, the college system would collapse overnight. You see, critics argue the system looks very different depending on how it is experienced in practice. So let's talk about in practice what this may look like. In the first 2 years of college, a student is tasked with completing general education requirements such as English, math, science, and history. Really? They're expected to complete these subjects again that were supposed to be covered in high school. Sure, they will sprinkle a career course here and there in the major of your choosing, but do students really need general education courses at this point? I challenge you to ask a professional, engineer, doctor, or lawyer if they are using any of those supposed skill sets in their day-to-day operations. So basically, you have most of your college years wasted in subjects you took in high school just to charge you more tuition. That leads me into the cost of this so-called higher education. One of the biggest concerns is tuition inflation. Over several decades, the cost of college has risen significantly faster than wages. At the same time, student loan access has expanded, allowing institutions to increase prices while maintaining enrollment. Some analysts describe this as a system where financing availability quietly enables price escalation. In simple terms, when borrowing is easy, prices tend to rise. And when prices rise faster than income, debt becomes the mechanism that keeps the system functioning. That leads to a more uncomfortable framing. A structure where universities receive tuition up front, lenders collect long-term interest, service industries benefit from enrollment, and administrative systems expand while the student carries a delayed financial risk. From this perspective, some critics describe higher education less as a traditional marketplace and more as a long-duration financial pipeline. The student loan pressure system. The concern around student debt is not just its size, but its duration and structure. Unlike most consumer debt, it is extremely difficult to discharge. That creates a unique situation where financial obligations extend deep into early adulthood, a period when individuals are typically trying to establish themselves. This has led some observers to describe student loans as a lifetime shadow cost, something that shapes career choices, housing decisions, and risk tolerance long after graduation. If a financial system consistently delays financial independence rather than enabling it, critics argue it deserves closer scrutiny. Degree inflation and the access problem. Another major factor is degree inflation. Many jobs that once required no degree now list a bachelor's degree as a baseline requirement. In many cases, the actual tasks of the job have not fundamentally changed. Instead, the degree functions as a filtering mechanism in competitive labor markets. This shifts the role of college from education to access. The degree becomes less about learning and more about eligibility. Professional licensing programs also create direct entry into careers that do not require a 4-year degree. Fields like real estate, insurance, commercial driving, cosmetology, and various technical certifications provide structured, skill-based pathways into the workforce. Beyond these, online education and certifications have expanded rapidly, particularly in areas like technology, marketing, and design. Skills can now be acquired independently, often at a fraction of traditional costs. These alternatives do not eliminate the value of college, but they do challenge its position as the universal default. The new variable: AI and economic pressure. The debate over college is now being reshaped by forces that were not part of the original equation. Tasks that once required entry-level workers basic analysis, writing, customer support, data processing, are increasingly being automated or augmented. This affects exactly the kinds of roles many recent graduates rely on to enter the workforce. At the same time, employers are reevaluating hiring structures. Some companies are reducing entry-level positions, increasing expectations for experience, or using AI tools to replace portions of junior-level work entirely. This creates a difficult transition point. If traditional starter jobs become less available, the return on a broad general degree becomes less predictable. Artificial intelligence is transforming the workforce at a pace few could have imagined just a few years ago. Entire industries are being reshaped, businesses are rethinking how they hire, and many of the entry-level jobs that college graduates have traditionally relied upon are beginning to disappear or change dramatically. This has led many critics to ask a difficult question. Is higher education still delivering the return on investment it once promised? The answer isn't as simple as saying college is no longer worth it. Rather, AI is exposing weaknesses in a higher education system that was already under pressure from rising tuition, growing student debt, declining public confidence, and an increasingly competitive job market. For decades, a college degree served as proof that someone possessed the knowledge and skills needed to succeed in the workplace. Today, however, AI can already perform many of the tasks once assigned to recent graduates. It can write reports, summarize research, analyze data, generate marketing content, assist with coding, review legal documents, and automate countless administrative functions. That doesn't mean AI is replacing every job. What it does mean is that it is replacing many of the routine tasks that helped graduates gain experience early in their careers. This is one of the biggest concerns among economists and labor market experts. Entry-level positions have traditionally served as training grounds where employees learn their profession before moving into more advanced roles. If AI now completes much of that work, companies may simply hire fewer junior employees. The result is an experience gap. Graduates need experience to get hired, but the jobs that once provided that experience are becoming less available. At the same time, the financial risks associated with higher education continue to grow. Students routinely borrow tens of thousands of dollars and sometimes well over $100,000 to earn degrees based on the expectation that stable, well-paying careers will follow. But if AI slows hiring, suppresses wages, or reduces the number of available positions in certain fields, that financial calculation becomes much more uncertain. What was once viewed as an investment increasingly feels like a gamble for many families. The timing couldn't be more challenging. The economy has cooled in many sectors. White-collar hiring has slowed. Employers have become more selective. At the same time, AI continues to improve almost monthly, automating work that previously required junior employees. This combination of technological disruption and economic uncertainty has created what many see as a perfect storm for today's graduates. Critics also point out that higher education often struggles to keep pace with technological change. Universities are designed for long-term academic planning. Developing new degree programs, revising curricula, and obtaining approvals can take years. AI, by comparison, evolves in months. By the time a new course reaches students, many of the tools it teaches have already advanced. This isn't necessarily a failure of educators. It reflects the reality that large institutions move more slowly than technology. But it does raise an important question. Can colleges adapt quickly enough to prepare students for a workforce that is changing almost in real time? Meanwhile, Employers themselves are beginning to rethink what they value. Increasingly, companies are focusing less on where someone earned a degree and more on whether they can solve problems, communicate effectively, learn new technologies, and use AI as a productivity tool. Demonstrated skills, portfolios, certifications, internships, and real-world experience are becoming just as important, if not more important, than a diploma alone. Ironically, as AI becomes more capable, the skills that make us uniquely human become even more valuable. Leadership, communication, creativity, emotional intelligence, critical thinking, ethical judgment, relationship building, negotiation, strategic decision making. These are abilities that AI can assist with, but cannot fully replace. The future workforce may depend less on competing against AI and more on learning how to work alongside it. This shift is also changing the conversation about education itself. Economic slowdown and a tightening job market, layered on top of the rise of artificial intelligence, is another challenge that many graduates now face. A slowing economy and an increasingly competitive job market. Economic cycles have always influenced employment opportunities, but today's graduates are entering a labor market that is changing on multiple fronts at once. Companies are navigating higher borrowing costs, inflationary pressures, global uncertainty, and rapidly advancing technology, causing many employers to slow hiring, reduce budgets, and expect more from fewer employees. When businesses become more cautious, entry-level hiring is often one of the first areas affected. Rather than investing heavily in training recent graduates, employers frequently look for candidates who already possess years of experience, specialized technical skills, professional certifications, or a proven track record. This creates a frustrating paradox for many young professionals. Employers want experience, but new graduates have had little opportunity to gain it. As hiring slows, competition naturally intensifies. A single job posting that may have attracted a few dozen applicants just a few years ago can now receive hundreds or even thousands of applications within days. Many of those applicants possess graduate degrees, years of professional experience, or specialized credentials that place them ahead of recent college graduates. Standing out in such an environment becomes increasingly difficult, regardless of academic performance. Timing has always played a significant role in career outcomes. Graduating during periods of economic expansion often means more available jobs, higher starting salaries, and greater opportunities for advancement. Graduating during a slowdown, however, can delay career growth for years. Economists have documented that entering the workforce during a recession or weak labor market can suppress earnings and career progression well beyond the initial years after graduation. Those who struggle to secure relevant employment immediately after college often find themselves competing against the next wave of graduates while attempting to build experience. Adding another layer of complexity is the rapid adoption of artificial intelligence and automation. Many companies are using AI to increase productivity, allowing existing employees to accomplish tasks that previously required larger teams. Administrative work, customer service, basic marketing content, data analysis, software development assistance, and other routine knowledge work tasks are increasingly being augmented, or in some cases partially replaced by AI tools. While AI is also creating new roles in industries, many of those opportunities require specialized technical knowledge or advanced digital skills that traditional degree programs may not fully emphasize. This has fueled growing concern that higher education is struggling to keep pace with the evolving labor market. Many universities continue to design programs around career paths that are changing faster than academic curricula can adapt. Students often spend 4 years preparing for professions that may look significantly different by the time they graduate. Employers, meanwhile, increasingly prioritize demonstrated skills, internships, portfolios, certifications, and practical experience alongside or sometimes even ahead of a traditional degree. The financial implications further amplify these concerns. Tuition has steadily increased over the past several decades, while student loan debt has reached historic levels. Graduates are often expected to begin repaying significant debt shortly after leaving school, yet many enter a labor market offering fewer entry-level opportunities and slower wage growth than previous generations experienced. For some, the return on investment remains strong, particularly in high-demand professions such as healthcare, engineering, accounting, and certain technology fields. For others, especially in oversaturated or rapidly changing industries, the financial payoff may take much longer to materialize. As these trends converge, many observers argue that the relationship between higher education and employment is becoming increasingly strained. The traditional expectation that earning a bachelor's degree would reliably lead to stable employment and upward economic mobility is no longer viewed as automatic. Instead, students are being encouraged to think more strategically about majors, internships, technical skills, networking, certifications, apprenticeships, and lifelong learning. Whether this represents a temporary adjustment or a long-term structural shift remains the subject of ongoing debate. What is increasingly clear, however, is that students entering today's workforce face a more complex equation than previous generations. They must weigh rising education costs against uncertain economic conditions, a more selective hiring environment, and technological changes that continue to reshape the nature of work itself. For many families, this has transformed higher education from a straightforward investment into a decision requiring careful analysis of cost, career outcomes, and adaptability in an economy that is evolving faster than ever before. The perfect storm question. When viewed individually, none of these trends necessarily signals the collapse of higher education. Rising tuition has been a concern for decades. Student loan debt has grown steadily for years. Artificial intelligence is simply the latest wave of technological disruption. Economic recessions have always come and gone. But what happens when all of these forces collide at the same time? That is the question increasingly being asked by economists, educators, employers, parents, and students alike. For the first time in modern history, multiple long-term trends are converging to challenge the traditional belief that a four-year college degree is the safest and most reliable path to financial security. When these factors are combined, a larger picture begins to form. Rising tuition and long-term debt obligations, increasing reliance on degrees for access to jobs, growing availability of lower-cost alternative education paths, rapid AI-driven disruption of entry-level work, a tightening or uncertain job market due to economic cycles. Individually, each of these trends is manageable. Together, they create what some describe as a perfect storm of pressure on the traditional college-to-career pipeline. Higher education still plays an essential role in research, innovation, healthcare, engineering, science, and countless professions that require deep expertise. Universities teach students how to analyze information, evaluate evidence, think critically, and adapt to changing circumstances, skills that will remain valuable regardless of how AI evolves. In this new age, college is obsolete. It does not mean higher education has lost all value, but it does suggest that the four-year college or university route to a better future is dead, just like the American dream of owning a home. Today, it exists alongside trade schools, community colleges, certifications, online learning, entrepreneurship, and rapidly evolving technology that reshapes entire job categories, re-bachelor's degrees even for jobs that historically did not need one, creating a cycle where education becomes less of a competitive advantage and more of an expensive admission ticket. Each trend alone presents challenges. Together, they create something far more significant. Some economists have compared it to a perfect storm, a convergence of economic, technological, and educational forces that is fundamentally reshaping the college-to-career pipeline. For generations, the formula appeared almost guaranteed. Graduate high school, attend a four-year college, earn a degree, find a stable career, buy a home, build wealth, retire comfortably. That sequence became woven into the American dream itself. Today, every step in that formula is under pressure. Graduates are entering the workforce with unprecedented levels of student debt while facing one of the most competitive hiring markets in years. Entry-level positions are shrinking as automation and AI absorb routine tasks once assigned to new employees. Housing costs have risen dramatically, placing homeownership out of reach for many young professionals despite earning college degrees. For millions of Americans, the promise that education alone guarantees upward mobility feels increasingly uncertain. None of this means higher education has become worthless. Universities continue to produce the doctors who save lives, the engineers who build infrastructure, the scientists who develop new technologies, the teachers who educate future generations, and the researchers who push human knowledge forward. Higher education remains indispensable for countless professions, requiring deep technical expertise, licensure, and years of specialized training. Beyond technical knowledge, colleges help students develop critical thinking, research skills, communication abilities, problem-solving techniques, and the capacity to evaluate complex information qualities that remain valuable in an AI-driven economy. The question is not whether higher education still has value. The question is whether the traditional four-year residential college model remains the default path for the average student. Increasingly, the answer appears to be no. The landscape has changed. Today's students have more options than any previous generation. Community colleges offer affordable pathways to bachelor's degrees. Trade schools prepare students for high-demand careers with significantly lower costs and shorter timelines. Professional certifications allow workers to build specialized skills in months rather than years. Online education makes world-class instruction available at a fraction of traditional tuition. Entrepreneurship, freelancing, and the creator economy have opened career paths that barely existed 20 years ago. Artificial intelligence is accelerating this transformation. As AI reshapes industries, the shelf life of technical knowledge continues to shrink. Workers are expected to continually update their skills throughout their careers rather than rely on a single degree earned in their early 20s. Lifelong learning is becoming the new standard. This raises a difficult question. If skills now evolve faster than degree programs, if employers increasingly value demonstrated ability alongside formal education, if affordable alternatives can produce similar employment outcomes in many fields, if graduates face record debt while entry-level opportunities become more competitive, and we're lucky to just find an entry-level job, what about those that can't find that? Then what exactly are students buying when they commit 4 years and tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to a traditional college education? For some careers, the answer remains clear. For many others, it is becoming far less certain. Perhaps the greatest shift is not that college is becoming obsolete. Rather, the assumption that college is the only path to success is becoming obsolete. The future likely belongs to those who combine education with adaptability, practical experience, continuous learning, technological fluency, and the ability to evolve alongside a rapidly changing economy. The American dream has not necessarily disappeared, but the roadmap that previous generations followed to achieve it is being rewritten in real time. Now for my conclusion. A system in transition. The real issue is not whether college is good or bad, it is whether it still functions the same way in a world that is fundamentally changed. The question is no longer simply, is college worth it? It has become something more complicated. In a world of rising debt, AI disruption, and economic uncertainty, is the traditional college path still the safest default, or just one option among many competing paths in a much more unstable system? And if it is no longer the default, then the real shift is not just educational. It is structural and still unfolding.